everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Sinka. In today's class, we are going to be making this beautiful and elegant Bobo dress. For this style today, you're going to be needing 3.5 yards of Ankara fabric, and also I have here 2 yards of satin. Then you also be needing your crinoline, a matching thread, and a matching bias. And that's just the basic material that you'll be needing for today's class. If you're new to this channel, please kindly take a moment to subscribe. And to my old subscriber, you are all welcome back. I love you. If you have not clicked the notification bell, please kindly click it now so that you'll be notified anytime I upload a new tutorial. I'm sure you don't want to miss my next class. So please kindly click the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. Alright, so let's get started. Please don't forget to also give this video a thumbs up, so click the like button. All right, okay, so for this tutorial today, you're going to be needing your nipple point length, your underbust length, and then the length in which you want the cow to start, because the bobo is more like what I'm wearing here, is like a cow kaftan. So you can see the drape starts, somewhere around here. It's just a little below my hip line. So in my own case, I'm going to be using 32 inches. You will be needing your shoulder measurement, that is your across back measurement, and also you need your hip circumference measurement. And hip circumference is the only circumference measurement you'll be needing for this class, just your hip circumference measurement. All right, if you would love to see a tutorial on what I have on here, the link is right there on the screen. You can click it so that you can watch it. I'm going to be cutting the upper part of the bobo now, so you need to fold your fabric into 4, but then I'm going to be folding mine into 8 so that I can cut, because I'm going to be using this same fabric as my lining. So I'm going to be cutting everything at once, so I'll be folding my fabric into 8 instead of 4. If you want to use another fabric as your lining, you can fold it into 4. Then when you're done cutting you can now use that to cut out your lining. But I'm going to be using this same satin as my lining, so I'm going to be folding the fabric into 8. So my fabric is folded into 8 now. If you know you are using something else for your lining, then it means you're going to be folding your fabric into 4 so that you can now use the satin to trace out your lining. I'm going to rule my guideline. To determine the amount of the fold over, you need your shoulder measurement divided by 2 minus ½ inch. My shoulder is 16, divided by 2, that will be 8 inches. Then if I subtract ½ inch from 8 inches, that will be 7.5. So I will ensure I have 7.5 here, and that is exactly what I have here. Because it's a cold shoulder dress, you don't want it to come and start here, rather you want it to start a little inward, away from your shoulder. So this is my guideline. The next thing I'm going to do now is to measure where I want my cold shoulder to start from. I would like it to start around here. In my own case, I'm going to be using 5 inches. So I'll measure 5 inches downward. 5 inches. You can do 4, 4.5, depends on how off you want it. So the next thing now is to measure my underbust length. That is where the V yoke is going to end. So my underbust is 14.5, so I'll measure 14.5. Then I'm going to extend the line. So this is the guideline. This is the cold shoulder line. That is the amount you want to off it with. In my own case, I'm using 5, so then this is my underbust length. So the next thing you need to do is to come to this point. I'm going to measure 3 inches inward, starting from this folded edge. I'll measure 3 inches like this. Then I'll come to this tip. I'm going to measure 1 inch downward. Then I'll connect the 2 points together to get my shoulder slant. Don't forget to add ½ inch to that line. And the next thing is to input your neck width. For the neck width, I'm going to be using 3¼ so I'll measure 3¼ For the neck depth at the back, I'm going to be using 1.5. Then I'll connect these points together. Then for the front neck depth, I'm going to be using 3.5. The neck width remain the same, so you connect it together. Can you see? Then the front is going to have a slit, which I'm going to be slitting later on. Just measure 2 inches downward. That is where the slit is going to stop. So when we are done cutting, we are going to be slitting the center of the front neckline from here to here. All right, so now we are done with the neckline. So the next thing you need to do now is for you to connect from this point, just slant it to your under bust. Okay, like this. So you are going to be cutting this out now. So first you cut on the back neckline, then the shoulder, then you slit all the folded edge here. You don't need them to be unfold. You slit it, then you cut from here. So the yoke is ready. So the next thing you need to do is to remove 2 pieces inside. You're going to take out 2. That's going to be the back. So that's going to be the back yoke. So it's going to remain 2 now. You can see it's remaining 2 pieces. I'm going to be cutting off the front neckline now. Then, like I said, you're going to be slitting the center of the neckline to 2 inches below the neckline. So this is it. So this is the front. If you open it, you have 2 pieces. Can you see? You have 2 pieces for the front. So one is going to serve as lining for the other one. Back also, you see, you have 2 pieces. Okay? So the yoke is ready. So we are going to be cutting the Ankara now. Okay, so we are going to be cutting the Bubu itself now. And for that, you need twice your length measurement. Twice your gown length measurement. I'm going to be cutting that out from my fabric. I'm not going to be adding any allowance to that because you know we already have yoke at the upper part. So the length of the yoke that I'm going to be minusing later on will serve as my allowance and all of that. So you need twice your gown length measurement. I'm going to be cutting that out from my fabric. My total gown length is 60 inches. So I'm going to be cutting out 60 inches 2 times. 60 inches. Then another 60 inches. So I've cut that out. So what I'll do next is to fold it into 2 like this. Can you see? This part here is unfold. This upper part here is unfold. After that, I'll fold it again into 4 this way. So it's folded into 4 now, and I'm going to place it on my table. This upper part here is unfold. So the next thing I'm going to do is for me to measure. Before I start, I'll measure 3 inches downward. I'll rule it. So from here to here is 3 inches. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is to bring back your yoke. This is my yoke. So I'll place my yoke on top of it like this. You align them together this way. Can you see? So this is where the coat shoulder stops here. You align it with the line that you drew. So from here now, at the beginning of the fabric, at the beginning of the wrapper here, I'm going to measure 4 inches. Starting from this point, I'll measure 4 inches. 4 inches this way. Then I'll connect it back to this line. I'll connect it back to this line this way. You connect it back to this line. Then you trace out the shape of this V on your Ankara. So it's just going to be like this. So you trace out the shape of the V. If you have any question, please kindly leave it in the comment section. I'll be right there to reply any of your questions. From the beginning of the fabric to this line is 3 inches. Then from here to this line is 4 inches. Then we slant it this way. Hope it's clear. Then I also trace out the shape of the V on the yoke. Okay, so you need to input all your length measurements. You come to the neckline, you come to where your neckline is, so you place your tape ½ inch below the neck point, ½ inch below the neck point. Then you are going to input your nipple point length, the length in which you want the cowl to start, and then the length of your gown with your seam allowance. All right, so from here now I'll measure 10.5 inches downward. That's my nipple point line. Then the length in which I want the cowl to start, which is 32 inches, and then the length of my gown, the length of my gown with my seam allowance. Extend all these nail lines. So this is my nipple point line here, and this is the length in which I want the cowl to start from. So what I'll do is, on this line in which I want the cowl to start from, I'm going to input my hip circumference measurement divided by 4. My hip circumference is 42 divided by 4, that will be 10.5. Put 10.5 here, add extra 3 inches to it. Then I'll roll it straight to the M line, and also with a slight curve I'm going to connect it to my nipple point line here. First, you roll it straight down to the M line. Then from this point now, with a slight curve, you connect it to your nipple point line. Can you see? So we can now go ahead and cut it out. Hope it's clear. If you have any question, like I said, kindly leave it in the comment section. I'll be right there to reply any of your questions. Okay, this way. You can take it off. Hope it's clear. Then you cut out this other shape. So we are done cutting. So you remove this part. You no longer need this part. Discard it. So this is how it's going to be later on. Can you see? This is how it's going to be later on. All right, then you don't need this part also. Don't forget to notch your nipple point line at this point. So that's your sleeve opening. Okay, then the center of your V, you notch it by quarter inch, and then the center of the V on the yoke as well, notch it also with quarter inch for all the 4 of them. All right, so the next thing we are going to do now is for us to cut out the flounce that is going to be around the yoke area. I will measure whatever I have here now, and I'm going to divide it by 6.28. I'll divide it by 6.28. Okay, so from here, so from the tip here, just measure all around this area. So here I have exactly 17 inches. I have exactly 17 inches. So I'm going to divide that 17 inches by 6.28. I'll divide it by 6.28. Then I'm going to be folding my fabric into 16 folds. I'll fold my fabric into 16 folds. At first, you fold it into 2, this way. Then you fold it over again into 4, this way. Then over again, like this, into 8. After that, you fold it downward this way into 16 folds. Hope it's clear. When that is done, the next thing for you now is to determine the radius of the circle, is to determine the radius of the flounce. So when we measure the V on the Bubu, we got 17 inches. So 17 inches, we are going to be dividing it by 6.28. So 17 divided by 6.28, that will give me 2.7. That is 2 3/4. 2 3/4. Okay, so I'm going to rotate 2 3/4 on my fabric. 2 3/4 on my fabric. 2 3/4. 2 3/4. 2 3/4. Then I'll connect the points together this way. Then after that, I'll measure the length of my flounce. I'm going to be doing 4.5 for the length of the flounce. So from here now, I'll measure down 4.5. 4.5. Then I'll go back to the tip of this point. I'll measure down to where this my 4.5 stops here. Whatever you have there now, I'm going to rotate it. So here I have 7.25. So I'll rotate the 7.25. 7.25. 7.25. 7.25. Then I'll connect it together also. So the next thing now is for me to cut it out. Okay, so if you open it, you will have 4 circles. So you need to cut out another one exactly like this that is going to serve as your lining. Right? So since my fabric is still on fold, I'll just fold it downward like this. The same way, 2 3/4, 2 3/4, 2 3/4, 2 3/4. Then you measure your 4.5. If you open the first one, you will have 4 circles. So you are going to be slitting one side open. So let me just slit one side open. So if you open it, you have 4 circles like I said. So you have 4 circles. Then this is the lining. If you open the lining as well, you also have 4 circles. Don't forget, you're going to be slitting one side open. So before I scatter, I'll slit one side open. So what you need to do now is for you to take to the sewing machine this 4 that is here. These 4 that you have here, you're going to be joining them together. You join the 4 of them together to become one long strip. That will be your main body. Then these other 4, you will also join them also. So you join these 4 also. Join these 4 to become one long one. Join these 4 to become one long one. And this will serve as your lining. So you have 4 for the main body. So you have 4 pieces of the circle for your flounce, and then another 4 will serve as your lining. Hope is clear. So I'll join these 4 together, and I'll also join these 4 together. You can see how long it is. Then I've joined the other 4 as well. The next thing you have to do now is for you to match the 2 of them together like this, right side to right side. Then you're going to be joining the hem line of the flounce together with 1/2 inch allowance all the way down. Okay, so I'm done joining them together, but before you turn them to the good side, you need to attach your crinoline to the hem of the flay. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So So I finish off the edge of the crinoline like this. So the next thing now is to place it on top of your flounce this way. You leave ½ inch here. Before you start, you leave ½ inch. Then you place your flounce on, you place your crinoline on top of the flounce like this. Then you stitch the crinoline on top of the flounce. You will ensure you did not stitch up to the point that you stitched before. So make sure you did not sew on your previous seam. Step away from your previous seam the way I'm showing you here like this. You leave ½ inch before you start. Then you place the crinoline on top of it. Make sure you step away from your previous seam. You can see my previous seam here. Make sure you did not sew on top of your previous seam. So just place it away the way I've shown you like this. Can you see? Then you stitch the crinoline all around the flounce, but make sure you did not stitch on this line. You should, no matter what, you should not cross this line inward. You should not cross this line inward. To stop 1 inch like this so that you can be able to attach the bias on top of it. Then you cut off the excess, cut off the excess crinoline. You also finish the end point with your bias. Okay, so I'm done. So the next thing I will do now is for me to turn it to the good side, and I will take it to the ironing table and iron it flat. So the next thing now is for me to join the two ends of the flounce together. So just open it like this, open it like this. Can you see? Open it like this and open the other end as well. Open it, then match the joining the center together this way. Match it together, and then you're going to stitch the two of them together at the open end here like this. You join it, sew it to the left and also to the right. Okay, I'm done. So you just turn it to the good side like this. Can you see? So you turn it to the good side. Now it's a circle on its own. Can you see? Match the two raw edges here. I'll match it together. These two raw edges, you match it together and stitch all around so that you can keep them in place. So I'll keep the flounce aside and I'll work on the yoke. This is the front yoke. This is the front yoke. So what I will do is for me to match the two of them together like this. You know, we cut two for the front. So match them together properly. Then you take to the sewing machine. You join the neckline together with ½ inch. Then you join this part together with ½ inch and also here with ½ inch. Okay? Keep it aside. Then you work on the back. Match the two of them together. So you join together at the neckline, and then this part here, you join it together from here to here. The yoke. So what I'll do is to notch the center of the opening in center front to your seam, but don't cut your seam. So after that, you're going to turn it to the good side. So I've ironed the front nicely. So the next thing you have to do now is for you to insert it inside the back. This is the back. The back is on the wrong side. You can see I've not turned it to the good side, so the back is still on the wrong side. So you put this front that is already turned to the good side, you insert it inside with each shoulder will be inserted into the corresponding shoulder of the back. So just insert it this way. Can you see? Then the other side as well. So make sure you align them properly here at the shoulder area. You have to pin it so that it doesn't escape back inside. So you take to the sewing machine now, you join together with 1/2 inch allowance. Okay, so I've joined together at the shoulder. So the next thing is to bring the front back to the good side this way. Just pull it out. So that way you have nicely joined the shoulders together. Then the next thing for you now is just to iron the back. I've ironed it. Can you see? This is the back. Finish this part nicely. We have also joined the shoulder. The neckline is already finished as well. So the only place that is open is this V part. Can you see? This V part is the only part that is open. So the next thing we have to do now is to attach this to the Bubu. So I'll pin the flounce all around the neckline like this. I've pinned it, so I'll take to the sewing machine now and I will stitch this flounce all around this place. So I've attached the flounce to the neck circumference. So the next thing now is to attach our yoke. First, locate your center front. You know we have notching on our center front. This is my center front here, and here is my center back. Don't forget we place notching on it. So this is our yoke. So you match this center of the V in front. You match it to the center front. You match it to the center front on the Bubu. Then this other V at the back, you match it to the center back. Right side to right side. The right side of my Bubu is facing up. This doesn't really have any right side or wrong side. You can use either of them. Okay, so you mash it together. So I'll mash the center of the V on the yoke. I'll mash it to the center front of my Bubu. Pin each side of the yoke to the left and then to the right. Okay. Like this. So I'll stitch the yoke to the neckline now. Make sure the center of the V align with the center front of the Bubu. So I've attached the front part of the yoke, and this is how it is. The center of the V for the back will align with the center back of the Bubu, right side to right side. Then you pin it to the left and then to the right. So you stitch the yoke to this part till you get to where your cold shoulder starts. You can see where my cold shoulder starts here, to that point. Then to the other side, you pin and stitch till you get to where the cold shoulder is as well. Can you see? So I'll take back to the sewing machine and I will stitch together. So I've attached the yoke to both the front and the back. Can you see? This is the front part. This is the back. This is the cold shoulder area. Can you see? We've attached it together. So the next thing now is for you to turn it to the wrong side. Then you are going to be using your bias to finish all the raw edges from the wrong side. So just place your bias on top of it this way. Can you see? And then you stitch it all around. Starting, you can start in front, you can start in the back. Anywhere you like, you start and stitch the bias all around. Then when you are done, then you top stitch. Okay. So the bias is right on top of the yoke. Then you stitch the bias all around, passing through the cold shoulder area, and yeah. So if you like, you can also finish only the cold shoulder area with the bias. So just place the bias on top of it on the right side, then you stitch the bias. You can start like 1 inch inward and then another 1 inch inward. You stop at another 1 inch inward. Then when you finish stitching the bias, you turn it the way we are going to turn it now and top stitch on the wrong side, flipping this out of the way so that the stitching line will not be on top of the flounce. So you can see this is how it is. So the next thing now is for you to push the bias downward, and then you top stitch the bias all around. When you are top stitching the bias, you will be flipping flounce out of the way so that the stitch line will not be on the flounce, so that the stitch line will not be on the flounce. So this is how it's going to look. Let me show you. So now you push the bias downward this way, then you flip the flounce out of the way. As you are sewing, you'll be using your hand to flip the flounce out of the way underneath. Your hand to flip the flounce out of the way from the good side like that. Don't stitch on your flounce. So we have nicely finished the neckline, the armhole, everything. So this is how it is. You can see the stitch line here. So this is the stitch line of the bias. Can you see? So from we didn't step on our flounce. Can you see? So the stitch line is underneath the flounce. Okay, so the next thing you have to do now is for you to finish the sleeve opening. Remember, we notch our underbust. So from one notching to the other, you are going to fold. So from one notching to the other one, you're going to fold this way 2 times, and then you make your stitch. You do the same thing to the second side. You know, we have notching on our nipple point line. If you remember, we notch it. So from one notching to the other notching, you fold it 2 times, and then you stitch the sleeve opening. So the last thing now is for us to close the side. So starting from your sleeve opening here, you close the side with 1 inch all the way down, stopping 10 inches before the hemline so that you can have 10 inches slit at the down part for easy movement. So the next thing now is to hem the bottom part of our dress and also to finish the slit. So just fold with the number of allowance added.